Hi, everybody. Welcome to Higher Ed Live. It's Monday, 1 o'clock Eastern Time, and today we're talking about 5 unique data fields for admissions marketing and tracking. Higher Ed Live is part of the network of professional development webcasts and podcasts. All episodes of Higher Ed Live are free and accessible in the archives at higheredlive.com and on iTunes. Today's show would not be possible without the support of our sponsors. Higher Ed Live is produced by M. Stoner, a marketing and communications firm that works with education institutions on branding, strategy, web design, and more. Higher Ed Live is sponsored by Omni Update, the leading web content management system provider for higher education. The company's web CMS, OU Campus, is secure and scalable with great tools and features, deployment flexibility, and an awesome user community. Last but not least, Higher Ed Live is sponsored by Terminal 4, a digital engagement and web content management built exclusively for higher education. The T4 platform enables universities, colleges, and community colleges to achieve all of their online goals, including driving student recruitment, retention, alumni fundraising, and research promotion by maximizing the effectiveness of their digital and content strategies. These are things we are all familiar with, I think. So welcome. My name is Melissa Calder. This is kind of a St. Joseph's University takeover today. St. Joseph's University is in Philadelphia, and we have myself and 2 other members of our staff here. And one of the best parts about being live is that we get to interact with you. Live viewers can be a part of our broadcast right now by sharing insights and asking questions on Twitter using the hashtag HigherEdLive. You can receive weekly updates about the live show, dates and times by subscribing to the Higher Ed newsletter as well. It comes right to your email. So yes, I'm your guest host, Melissa Calder. I'm the Associate Director of Media and Communication for undergraduate enrollment here at St. Joseph's. And my first guest is Kelly McGlynn, and Kelly is our Assistant Director of Admissions at St. Joseph's University. Kelly, do you want to say hi and tell us a little bit about what you do here?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks all for joining. My name is Kelly McGlynn. I work primarily within our Salesforce platform to make marketing, automation, travel tracking, communication function under one platform, and really collaborating all the different offices to be part of it.
Great. And our second guest is Yufi, and Yufi is the Assistant Director of Marketing, and he's actually in a different office. He's in the Office of Graduate College of Arts and Sciences, so he will be giving us a graduate perspective today. Kelly and I are in the same building, and Yufi is across campus. So hi, Yufi. You want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Hi. Thanks for having me. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Like Melissa said, my name is Yufi Zodu, and I'm the Assistant Director of Marketing for Graduate Arts and Sciences here at St. Joe's. So I work a lot with the recruitment and marketing for recruitment for graduate arts and science programs, and I'm in Salesforce as well, like Kelly, and but we also use a few other tools for our marketing that I think will be interesting to talk about today.
Great, thanks. Okay, so our topic today, 5 unique data fields for admissions in marketing and tracking. So big data is a hot topic these days, and in the marketing world, there's a lot of pressure to have more and more data, and higher education is no exception. Your efforts need to be tracked, and you need your data to make decisions about marketing and what kind of money you're going to spend on marketing and where you're going to spend it. So here at St. Joseph's, we are lucky enough to have a CRM platform, and That is Salesforce, Customer Record Management System, and here we call it the SRM, Student Record Management Systems. And we are just starting out collecting more and more data that pertains to marketing to the student, both behavioral data and historic data. So we think this topic's important because we're starting out, we think we're doing an okay job of getting organized and collecting more data, but we want to hear what other people are doing, and we're going to talk about 5 data fields that we think are a bit unique and what we're doing with them. So let's start off with number 5. What do you guys think?
Sounds good.
Okay. So number 5, we're going to talk about faculty communications. So I was on a Higher Ed Live show previous to this one talking about how we work with faculty to communicate to prospective students. And so faculty communications, such as letters, emails, and phone calls, we do believe that they help us recruit. But how can we tell people that they help us recruit? And how are we keeping that data organized? So I'm going to defer to Kelly, because Kelly in our office is actually overseeing the internal communication plan to faculty and asking them to do stuff like phone calls and letters to help us recruit. So Kelly, do you want to talk a little bit about that process, as in what you're asking the faculty for?
Right. So I think the faculty role in this whole communication method is really a personal one. It's about the personal notes and the personal phone calls and making this feel like, wow, somebody called me, somebody emails me in particular. So having that, that message is so important that it feels personal and that it's different for every student. So the faculty in this case are kind of going through a very seasonal cycle of, first reaching out via email and then maybe following up with a phone call about how their visit to campus might have been. And then maybe towards once their students are admitted, then they get that personal phone call of congratulations or a note saying, please check out this great program or this great major on top of it. So they're going through the cycle just like we are, but just in a way that is more targeted towards their major and in a way that it allows for a back and forth conversation. And that's what we're finding with much of this data, that the reach out starts it, but it keeps coming back to them. In fact, I was just working with a faculty member that said, I reached out to them first, and I keep telling them to reach out to admissions concerning their application, but they keep coming back to the faculty because that's where the relationship has been made. So some positive feedback that we've already seen.
Yeah, I have a feeling that data segmentation will be come up a lot in all of these 5 unique data fields. Yeah. So Yufi, can you tell us a little bit about anything that you're doing for faculty to help you communicate and recruit?
Sure. So in a lot of our lead nurturing campaigns, we include links to the faculty bios and profiles online, that have the contact information and some information about the faculty members. And we do that from the start when they fill out a request information form for a specific program and they get those emails that follow up. One of those emails is an email that introduces them to a few of the faculty members, and we make sure that one of them is the program director. And we let them know from the beginning that if they do have questions regarding the curriculum side and anything, because on the graduate level it's a little bit more specific and the prospective students come in knowing what they want. So if they have specific questions about a graduate program and what the curriculum is, they have that contact information and they communicate with the graduate directors. But another thing we do as well connect with the faculty members with is I do virtual open houses for some of our programs that choose to do virtual open houses throughout the semester, and I always do the virtual open houses with the graduate directors. So they will run the graduate open house, and it's pretty much a webinar where they describe the program to the prospective students, give them some of the admissions requirements, give them information about some of the outcomes and the course structures and things like that that they would not necessarily get from an admissions person or a marketing person. But so I do engage the program directors and the faculty members with that. And all that data is then put into Salesforce so we can keep a track on all the prospective students and inquiries that have attended our virtual open houses or that have spoken to a program director or faculty member. We can keep track of that, and then later we can do reports based on that to see, really kind of get a better picture of the level of interest that a prospective student has.
Great, thanks. So Yufi, can you talk a little bit more about how you put that information into Salesforce? Where are those data fields being kept? Are they tied to the student record? How are you making that happen?
So, so when we make the form that the prospective student used to sign up for the webinar, the virtual open house, that data directly goes into Salesforce. So what I do is I create an event on Salesforce in the event side of Salesforce, and obviously I make some of the criteria tailored to the graduate so we can keep it on our side. But basically, it's an event in Salesforce, and that event is a field in the student record, so you can build reports based on that field, and you can check off if they attended, check off if they confirmed. You can send emails based on that event through the event calendar automatically. So if somebody attends a virtual open house, you can quickly send them a thank you for attending email directly from the event side of Salesforce. If they registered but they did not attend, you can send them a sorry we missed you. Here's the recording of the virtual open house email directly from that event as well. So it keeps everything in that event side of Salesforce, and you can build reports based on it. So.
Great. So it sounds like a lot of the data that you're keeping on these faculty communications are involved with events, and that's highly automated, which is great.
Mm-hmm.
Kelly, what do you, a lot of our, and I know this since we work together, a lot of our faculty communications are not so automated. Can you talk about that process a little bit?
Yeah, so right now it is very manual, unfortunately, for my sake, but it's valuable data because when you're working with faculty members, they are so number-driven and results-driven as they always have been with their PhDs. So we really need to prove it to them to say this works or this doesn't work. One of the larger barriers that we find with faculty members is the relationship between student major and faculty department. And at 17 years old, let's face it, everybody's changing their major 100 times. So it's really important that when we say, reach out to these students via email and their current major is maybe English, they might be reached out to by a different major in 3 weeks because their new major is now marketing. So that segment and watching them turn over from, one major to another is another valuable resource because, they might not be in that major, but that effort is still being felt that they're moving through the tunnel or the funnel, and they keep going from English to marketing, and that just proves greater interest. We are logging them in the Salesforce platform as activities that they have had email correspondence or phone call correspondence at the moment. I foresee some, TargetX, which is the higher education solution for Salesforce, has some great opportunities moving forward that I think would be valuable in pursuing. For example, sub-events within a larger event. So for example, at an open house, they might have gone to a session on business. Those who have gone to the session would be part of that event and thus logged further and further. And then I think some other options moving forward that are worth investigating. Salesforce has a great option called the Flow, and it allows for those external to a Salesforce login to be able to log information without going right into the platform or into the system. So they would type in a student's name, and they'd be able to log it from an external website. So hopefully that will take off some of the the grunt work on my end, for lack of a better term. So there's a lot of solutions moving forward, but right now the priority is really the data to prove that it is valuable and which type of communication is the most valuable.
Right. Yeah, it just goes to show the difference between grad versus undergrad a little bit by what you both just said, that grad, of course, is very focused on the program and kind of almost start their communications with the program, where undergrad, the program or major comes into play a little bit later in the admissions marketing funnel. And so, of course, the data will be a little bit different for tracking. And I often say that, what we do is a difficult job because we're not just selling shoes. We're selling a big purchase. And sometimes I think we need to come up with a slogan or a hashtag that combines the word education and marketing together. I don't know. Does anyone have any ideas? Because we're educating and marketing at the same time, and it makes our jobs very interesting. Okay, so why don't we move on to number 4, data field number 4, mailing list. So maybe this isn't unique for your institution, but it's a bit unique for us here at St. Joseph's. We recently started doing a better job tracking our mailing list within the Salesforce platform and tying mail pieces such as our view books and other pamphlets that go out to student records. And this is a very manual process again for us here on undergrad, and I'll have Kelly talk a little bit more about the details as to how that data is being kept and the steps it has taken to get to this point.
So it's as Melissa said, it's a little bit manual, but there's a few great tools. So within Salesforce, Demand Tools is an awesome resource to be able to just do mass uploads and changes to student records. And without it, this kind of work just wouldn't be possible, especially when you're mailing to thousands of students at a time. So within the student record, there are a few different fields that reflect all of our mailing. So maybe they got a view book piece of, about the university and general information, and maybe they got an open house invite later on. We are tracking all of these mailings by date in which they were sent. So hopefully by the end of the year we can see maybe are there gaps in who we are missing, or maybe some students don't fit our criteria for certain mailings. So once again, this is, I think the best resource for making decisions later on, both budget and non-budgetary related. This is really going to have some big changes on, how we think about things in the future. So with all of that, being said, it really does help our office in so many ways. So if somebody in the office said, somebody's calling me, they got something in the mail and they don't remember what it was, this is where it's a great resource. Everybody can see that student's profile, what they got, when they got it, whether it be mailings, emails, or any activities they've done. So it really allows for that personal customer service to know exactly what they're looking at so that we can assist them better in the long run.
Yeah, I'm excited to look at all of this data come May, June time period and really look at students' behavior and be able to see, that the students that got certain mailings and what they may have done as a result of receiving that mailing, or even looking at the combined reporting of, the faculty communications and the mailing list all together, and looking to see if that, what kind of impact that has had on the student.
Right.
I think you want to talk a little bit about mailing lists, and do you do anything to track this? Yes, no, maybe so.
Yeah, a little bit as well. We don't buy a lot of lists for our mailings. A lot of our inquiries come in organically through the request information form. And again, that's probably a difference between undergrad and grad, because our prospective students come in looking for a specific program already. So once they get to our website and they find that program, they'll fill out that form, and then they'll start getting information about that program through emails. And we have records of all those emails. So we use a tool called HubSpot for some of our lead nurturing, and it's a combination of a marketing tool as well as a CRM tool, but it also goes straight into Salesforce as well. So everything is kept going through that funnel of software, basically. But you can look up a name, like Kelly said, or an email, and it'll give you a list of everything they've received. What brochures they received, which emails they received. It also goes down all the way to the level of, did they click any links within the email, or what page they visit on the website, and then you can build reports based on that as well. So all the names that filled out the forms sit in those two systems simultaneously, so we constantly have those names available and we can check different things.
Great. Yeah, I just wanted to say shout out to our 14 viewers so far. And we got a comment from Brock, and they said, love it. Once you start tracking everything at the student level, you can start to find what's effective. So thank you for that. Thanks, Yufi. Have you looked at these reports in HubSpot, and has it helped you make any decisions?
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of these reports, when I look at them, it's twofold. Certain things like joint events or just like events that we have, you can kind of see of any of the students that end up enrolling at the school or into one of our graduate programs. You can look back and make a report and kind of see which ones of these students enrolled and what stages they came through and what was effective, which marketing campaigns were effective in enrolling the most number of students, and then you can really put more money behind those campaigns, and then you can also look at which campaigns were not effective and which platforms were not effective, and kind of cut back on those. We do a lot of that with our joint open houses that we do with business and undergrad as well combined. We do some of the tracking work and the reporting for that. So we see where our money's being effective and where it's not. We take steps towards that. In terms of email communications to the prospective students, if I start noticing a certain group of emails or a certain format of emails is not getting that many clicks, or many of those links are not really getting clicked on or opened, I kind of take a look at the structure of those emails and kind of look at what the subject line is and what the content is, and kind of see like, okay, well, a lot of people are not opening this specific email. What is wrong? Let me do some A/B testing with it, and then you can do different versions of that email and send that out for a couple of months and then come back to it and see, okay, well, they tend to open the email that has a bigger header or this header or a shorter subject line or that includes a brochure in the subject line or things along that nature. And then you can go back and kind of change some of those efforts and change some of those communications. It really helps you monitor and benchmark as you're going along as opposed to waiting for once or twice a year or something.
Right. Just to jump in there, when we get back. Sorry, can you hear me, Melissa?
Yes, go ahead, Kelly, you're on.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Just to jump back in there with the mailings and the faculty, even though we can't track how they're interacting with mailings, something that we've been trying to do with many of the faculty mailings is really drive them towards event registration at the end of some of these mailings. So last year we were able to, use this on a timeline. So we knew a letter for biology went out on this date, and here's the upswing for our admitted student event registration. So tracking these things in creative ways is definitely possible with the Salesforce platform, and I think that was the game changer for us to see, which ones were working better and at what point in time. Some of the majors were sending things as early as January and as late as the end of March. So that window kind of helped us create a timeline for key targeted time points where the communication really worked. So while you might not be able to test how mailings work in the moment, you can with a lot of other resources and playing around with the creative data side.
That is so true. And I just want to say that data is very important to us. It's becoming more and more important because people are asking us for it, and they want to know what's happening, and people really respond to numbers and quantifying things. But there's also, in this career, there's also a gut check that you have to do with everything. So I just wanted to say that I believe in the 70%, 75% data review, and then 25% gut for when you make your marketing decisions. So if anyone has any questions for us on Twitter, feel free to tweet at HigherEdLive or use the hashtag HigherEdLive. And we are moving on to number 3 of our 5 unique data fields for admissions marketing and tracking. And number 3 is about calling campaigns. So we've talked about mail, and we've talked a little bit about getting faculty involved. So now, and I know this is a topic near and dear to Kelly's heart, we want to talk about calling campaigns. So we do here at St. Joseph's in the undergrad office, we do have faculty do calling campaigns for us. We have alumni do calling campaigns for us. We have advisory boards doing calls for us. And it was always, I would say 2 years ago, here's a list of students, make these calls. We have segmented this list for you, and this is who we think you should reach out to. And then the list would go to them, and nothing would ever come back. So we didn't really know what was happening and if this was worth anyone's time or effort. So we are working on collecting that information back. And I'll go to Yuffie first this time, if that's okay. And so Yuffie, what have you been doing with calling campaigns, and are you tracking them?
Okay, so our calling campaigns are a little event-oriented. We don't really do them too much on a constant basis, which is something that we are trying to do more of in the coming months and semesters. But we tend to do our calling campaigns to remind people about our open house events, virtual open house events. We also tend to do calling campaigns to remind applicants to complete their application. If they've started an application and it's been sitting for a couple of weeks, sometimes months, we'll have calling campaigns to get those in-progress applications completed. We do track those, and we will just log them in Salesforce and make sure we put a note that says that we gave them a call regarding their application or completing their application. I guess that's about as far as we go with calling campaigns, but it is something that's in the works for the next coming semesters to be a more regular thing, to contact inquiries as soon as they submit a request information form and kind of contact them right away and put a name or a voice behind those emails.
Great. And are you looking at those reports at all, or is it more?
It's almost like a retrospective kind of, if a person says, well, I called and I spoke to somebody, but I don't remember who, it's almost like a way of like looking back at that record and kind of seeing, okay, well, it looks like, Jackie called this person on this date and was talking about their application. So at least it's a way to follow up. We haven't really gotten to the point yet where it's something that we're making reports about, but I think it's something that we should be doing.
Great. Okay, Kelly, I toss it to you. Kelly here oversees our what we call our office Hawks, because St. Joseph's is home of Hawk Hill, and we have our basketball team, and all of our sports teams are the Hawks, and so we call our student workers the office Hawks, and Kelly oversees them, and they are the bread and butter of our calling campaigns among many other participants. So I'll have Kelly talk a little bit about managing all of that.
So the office hawks not only come in this, the section of, yielding or admitting, they're following up on leads or, even the search information. So they really do beginning to end full circle. Even though they just like doing the congratulations phone calls, they really are there to, vet our student pool and figure out how interested are they. So a typical calling night, you might have about 6 students on staff. We call anywhere from the hours of 4 p.m. to about 8 p.m. They're averaging about 1,200 phone calls a week, which is quite impressive for a small student staff. Right now, this is quite manual, and we're looking at some options in the future to move this process a little bit faster. So right now they're logging into Salesforce, they're going to the student profile, they are logging a call, asking about student interest, when they plan to apply, and taking any notes and who they spoke to. And so it is very manual right now. Moving forward, next semester we're going to have a new feature within Salesforce and TargetX called telemarketing. And telemarketing makes it so much easier that a student pops up in front of you, you say you left a message, you had a conversation, put any comments in, save, and the next student pops up. So a lot less clicks, and in any world, a lot less clicks is way better. So we're moving in a great direction here. In the fall, they're following up about visits. Hey, thanks for visiting. How was it? Anything we can help you with moving forward? And as we get to the spring, it's going to be really driving them towards events, really driving them towards other opportunities like the honors programs or summer programs before they start their freshman year, and really getting them excited about it, which can only come from a student voice in that way. So the few different voices that we have is, the student voice, and we've got the faculty voice. And the feedback I've heard from the faculty are they're shocked or they don't believe that a faculty member is actually calling them, which is always a good sign. It keeps them on their toes and really allows for that personal connection once again. And then when you get to the advisory boards and alumni, that's a pretty interesting kind of dynamic happening there. So with any party involved, we're always tracking. And as I mentioned before, that flow option that Salesforce has is going to be vital to really track these conversations in a way that we haven't been able to before with the standard spreadsheet. This will allow them to write notes on the spot and to get it right into the system so that I could have a list the next day that says, follow up with these 5 people. And I think the speed aspect is going to be the game changer. There's another feature within Salesforce of campaigns. And this is something I think it's worth pursuing in the long run for any institution. It's got some, kinks to it that I think everyone needs to learn the hard way. But it allows for, let's say, a telemarketing campaign to be attached with an email campaign based upon the conversation. So if I left a voicemail, they're going to automatically get a pre-formatted email saying, sorry, we missed you, or you can change the text around. So that telemarketing feature has got a lot of potential moving forward, and my goal is just to eliminate spreadsheets from the face of admissions. If that's the only thing that gets done, I'd be thrilled. Because that's where data gets lost, and that's where there's a delay, because when there is a spreadsheet, it turns out to be manual in the long run.
Right, yes. Getting the data is half the challenge. Organizing it is the other half.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm excited to take a look at all of this data come the end of the spring semester and just review, which phone calls were more impactful. Did the students get a better result than some of the faculty? Was it the admission counselors following up that really was a great touch point for a prospective student? So I am really excited to have all of that to view and make decisions off of, and learn a lot more about our students' behaviors and what they're responding to. Great. So you want to move on to number 2, or does anyone else have anything to say about calling campaigns?
I don't about calling campaigns, but I was just looking at some of the tweets on the topic, and I just wanted to, make a couple comments as well. I think I don't know if we're allowed to say people's names that are commenting, that are asking the questions. Is that fine, or?
Sure.
Brock Tibbert has been making a lot of really great points on the discussion on #HigherEdLive. So thank you very much for that. A lot of really good points. I also wanted to clarify one thing too. I did mention that we could track when somebody reads your emails. I guess I probably should have rephrased that. You can track when somebody opens the emails. Obviously, you can't tell if they read it, and even if they read something, you can't tell if they understood it. So, but you can definitely track to the level of opening something. You can even track to the level of clicking a link within your email. There are a few tools that we use to do that. One of them is obviously through HubSpot. Each email itself gives you an open rate. You can go to the student and see which emails they received, which emails they opened, things along that nature. And then there's also another tool called Sidekick, which gives you pretty much a live notification when somebody opens an email. So, if I make sure that I use that plugin when I send my emails out, the moment that somebody opens that email, I'll get a notification that says, Kelly opened this email, so I will know as an admissions person, okay, Kelly currently is reading the email about tuition. Why don't I give her a call right now, or have an admissions counselor give her a call right now and ask her if she has any questions, and she will probably bring up a tuition question or something along those lines. So there are a few tools that give you that kind of leeway, but like Brock said, you can't really tell if they read the emails or not.
Great.
Good point.
Thank you. And Yuffie, you jumped ahead to number 2,
I'm sorry.
which is email open rates. Now, again, this is not. This may not be unique for your institution to be reviewing these or collecting them. It's not unique to us to be collecting them through the Salesforce platform, but it is unique to us to actually be analyzing and reviewing them in order to make decisions for the upcoming campaign, etc. And I know there are a lot of statistics out there about email open rates and the percentages that they should be in higher education and things like that. And I would say that ours never seem to line up with what's out there with Noel Levitz and sources such as those. So I just wanted to bring up the topic about email open rates and how we're looking at them in order to make decisions. And so just from my perspective as kind of the reviewer of data and then the decision maker, as far as emails, I look at it in a campaign-oriented fashion. So I look at, inquiries versus admitted students versus, search. So the admissions funnel. And I base all of the email reporting on those sections. And that's how I make my decisions. Yuffie, do you want to talk about how you make some decisions on emails? I know you talked about, that larger headers work and certain subject lines work, but can you give a solid example of how you actually change something for email based on data?
Sure. So a lot of our invitations for our events, uh, we, there are different parts of the email that we kind of test. Subject line, header, whether to include an image in it, or, whether certain emails that are longer are open more, the shorter ones. There are a lot of different factors. So we used to send a specific type of email with inviting our existing leads to events like open houses and things like that. Um, and, and that example that I mentioned earlier was referring to A/B testing on the subject lines, and that was one that took a few semesters to really kind of get the right length versus putting the right information in the subject line. And we used to try to put as much detail in the subject line as possible. We would put the date, the time of the event. All those were jammed into this really long subject.
Hmm. Yeah, I know for our,
And
I'm
did I?
sorry, for our email review, I think that a lot of the data collection helps us, decide when and when not to send an email. Not so much what is in the content of an email, but more or less the timing of an email and the audience that that email should go to. I think that our open rates have really helped us with those decisions and have helped segment our email campaigns to go to the correct people instead of just kind of email blasting.
See, I guess ours is a little different just because our email lists, I guess if you want to call them that, are already segmented as soon as they fill out a form because we have specific forms for specific programs. And so when somebody comes in and requests information on a master's in health administration, the moment they fill out that form, they are automatically put into that health administration list. So they get those health administration emails, and the first email that goes out is pretty instant from the moment they fill out that form. So I guess part of the reason why we don't put too much on our side, put too much stock into the actual open rate by itself, is because people are already they're looking for something specific, and when they get that email right away, it's almost like a gimme. I'm getting this email and I'm expecting an email, putting my information and I'm expecting an email right away. So that open rate is always very high. It goes down as those 5 emails or 6 emails in our campaign, are going along, during the weeks or so. But those initial few emails, our open rates are very high because they're expecting that already.
Yeah. It just goes to show again the difference between how undergrad has to communicate versus graduate, because undergrad, again, we start with general messaging, and then once they're admitted, we start drilling down into program-related communications. Kelly, did you have anything to add about email?
Yeah, I guess just to the point that you just made, I think we have to set reasonable expectations for the timing as well. A good click rate in October is very different than a good click rate in January or February. We see the data that I've run over the past few weeks shows many students don't start opening our emails until they know they're admitted, which I think is fascinating. It's a security blanket in many ways for them. So it's important to set that expectation that there is going to be different click rates for what we call success.
Great point. Yeah. Okay. We have a little bit more time left, so let's move on to number 1, which is social media contest winners. So this is a new one here in our undergrad office for tracking. We have multiple contests on social media especially at open houses and things like that. At open houses, we ask people to tweet using a hashtag, and we award students that our office picks, if we like their pictures, if they've been engaged all day on social media, things like that. And we then give them a prize, and we collect their information. And we have been manually inputting that they were on their student profile that they had won a social media contest, with the hopes that eventually we will be able to include that in our student behavior report and compare that to students that do end up coming to St. Joseph's, and if indeed they were a social media contest winner or not. Not to say that just because you win a social media contest, you're going to choose a college. But again, we want to look at the entire student behavior from the time that they have inquired with us to when they possibly do commit to our university. And so this is exciting. Kelly, do you want to discuss a little bit about how you implemented this in our system?
Sounds good. So we implemented this at the same time we implemented all of the mailing fields. So it was just kind of a mass overhaul of, a series of check boxes and date boxes where you can fill in manually, or you can do it as a mass load. The fields that we added for social media included social media contest winner, at our open houses, and that also allowed us on the spot to be able to run a report and say, I need mailing addresses for any student with this box equals true, for example. In addition to that, we also added 2 boxes for what we have as our Facebook groups for the class of 2018 or 2019 Facebook page. If they join one of those official type of groups, that gets logged in their profile as well. And it's not only for the sake of figuring out who enrolled and who didn't in the end, but it also helps us to reach out at that last few hours to say, you are a part of this group, you clearly are very interested, maybe why haven't you pulled that trigger yet? Or what can we do to help you a little bit more? And it really allows you to have a whole different set of leads to follow up with in the future. Just because they don't call you doesn't mean they're not interested. They're just showing their interest in a different way.
True. Yuffie, do you have anything that's going on in the graduate area as far as tracking social media contest winners, tracking anyone involved with social media?
We do use our Facebook and Twitter to kind of share information, and but we don't use it as much in terms of as a platform to get conversions with. It's mostly like a nurturing tool that we use our social media for. Is we just maintain a relationship with our inquiries. We kind of give them some information about the area, about things going on campus, and but we don't really use it for contests, unfortunately.
Great. But I know you use HubSpot, and I think HubSpot has a field or can track social media behavior.
Yes, absolutely. So if somebody fills out one of our request information forms, we get a pretty good like profile of who that person is, and their social media is one of it. So for example, if you, Melissa, were to request information and you entered your first name, last name, email address, and then that email address is the same email address that's used for your Twitter, when we look at your record in HubSpot, we can see all that information. We can actually see a picture of your Twitter account, of your profile picture from Twitter, and that's one of the things that we use to kind of measure engagement. And that's one thing I actually wanted to touch upon with regard to the emails as well, is that we do kind of like a lead scoring thing through HubSpot. So you can assign different points for different things that the record does. So if a record opens an email, I could say that is worth 10 points. If a record clicks a link in an email, I can say that that is worth, 15 points. If a person visits 20 pages from our website, I can say each page is worth 5 points. If a person stays on a page for a long time, I can assign, different things to give that to give that person points. So when I'm giving these names to our admissions counselors in reports, there will be a field next to that that says what their lead score is. So somebody with a very high lead score means that they've engaged in a lot of things, and one of those things is social media. If they have social media, if they've interacted with us on social media, it adds to their lead score. But that is definitely a way that we kind of like put a numeric value to their interaction with us. And if somebody has 150 points versus somebody who has 25 points, and it's crunch time, and I'm giving a huge list to one of our admissions counselors to kind of do some follow-up on the inquiries, they're obviously going to start with the people with more points because they know that their interest is a little bit more pressing and tangible and quantifiable. And then they'll make their way, obviously, down to the people with less points.
Yeah, we would like to get there with getting, because we have, in undergrad, we have a bunch of different lead sources as well, and we look at activity, but this is why we're adding all of these fields into our student profiles, because we would like social media and email open rates and the mail that they're getting and all of the marketing efforts that we're doing to be part of the student behavior so that we can track and include that in the tracking of how a student may make their decision to attend university.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Great. I think we've had some good discussion here. I hope we gave some concrete examples from St. Joseph's. As you know, we are a work in progress, as many marketing admissions offices are, and we were glad to share some insights with you. And we thought that this was an important topic because recently you may have received it in the mail, the AMA marketing publication. The cover says Analytics in Action, and it's their feature story is all about analytics, and they have some great statistics on data and what marketing and admissions, what marketing offices are doing with data, and we wanted to give the higher ed perspective on that, and I'm sure this is a discussion that will continue on. Kelly and Yuffie, do you have any parting words for us?
Yeah, so as I'm thinking about everything that we're talking about and running reports and analytics, the only thing I would say is always think mobile friendly, and I think that's what Salesforce does well. Mobile emails, mobile friendly for the Salesforce One app is fantastic to add tasks to your colleagues for better customer service. It also allows you to do reporting on the spot through dashboards. And that's, what really allows us to, as I was sitting here, I was just running the calling numbers for this fall semester, and there are over 10,000 phone calls made by students this semester. So those on-the-spot numbers really are a game changer in higher ed, which moves much slower than the business world. So the faster we can move and on-the-spot we can move, I think there's some, great opportunities there to really be ahead of the game of, so many of our other colleagues. And it also, in the long run, is going to really help us to choose and admit students with all of this data that are going to be successful here, who want to be here. Hopefully that could really change admissions rates and who are reaching out to applications, when, where, and how. There's a science to it. This isn't just a shot in the dark.
Right.
Yeah, I totally agree. Another thing I would add is just to be able to use this data that you have at your fingertips kind of instantly is really it's an advantage. It's being a little bit of ahead of the curve because a lot of us use analytics in almost like a retrospective way. Like end of year. Okay, well let's do these reports and let's kind of take a look at what worked this semester and let's fix that for next semester or next year around this time. But we really have a lot of tools that let us do these kind of decisions and changes on the spot instantly. We can really see what is working, see what's not working, and make changes based on that. And I think in this kind of environment in higher ed where it's really becoming really competitive, and at least on the graduate side, when you think about the cost of education and where people are in their lives and what they're thinking about and that financial commitment, you really have to be able to give them all the information that they want when they want it in a format that works for them, kind of instantly, and be able to really make those changes dynamically right then because we're not the only people that they're looking at, and that's one thing that we need to realize. We are one of many schools that they're looking at the same time, and service is really a very important part of making a decision like that and finding that right balance, and making those little changes sometimes makes a bigger difference than waiting a semester and making a really big change.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much, Kelly and Yufi, for joining me in this adventure today on Higher Ed Live. Thanks as always to our program sponsors, M. Stoner, Omni Update, and Terminal 4. I'm Melissa Calder signing off, and Andrew Gosin will be here tomorrow with an all-new Advancement Live. Have a great day.